wanted to ride a motorcycle and sidecar, as I'm sure many of you have, both from a perspective of sitting in the sidecar and riding the bike. Fortunately, I'm here today at Watsonian, one of the leading sidecar manufacturers in the UK. They're going to let us have a quick look around the factory, and then I'm going to get a lesson on how to ride this thing. And look, I've been told it's pretty damn different to riding a solo motorcycle, so I'm interested to see how I get on with it.
But first, I was lucky enough to see how one of these is made. I was super impressed with the level of detail and handcrafting that goes into each sidecar, starting with the metal shop. You can see all of the steel tubing racked up that gets bent and machined into parts like this, which combine to make the frame or chassis. Next up, they're assembled on a jig in the welding shop before being, you guessed it, welded, and then they're sent off for powder coating before the rest of the build. The remaining space is a sort of general assembly area where you can see that the fiberglass shells are stored after they're brought in from a specialist. The trim, badges, logos, seat and carpet are added, as is the windscreen, which starts out flat and then is hand bent over one of these presses to get the final shape. Mudguards are fitted out and wired up with lighting before everything is assembled into the frame. Although Watsonian machine their own hubs, the spoked wheels are laced up by Hagen, who also provide the shock absorbers, although some cars are fitted with a cast wheel if it's a more modern build. Once everything has been put together, it's now time to fit the sidecar using a series of struts which typically attach to the frame of the bike. Now, I'm told that getting the alignment right is a real art, but it's an absolutely crucial step. In fact, it could be a matter of life and death. A few degrees out and it'll drastically hamper the handling of the whole setup. There's lean out, which compensates for sag and the camber in the road, toe in that stops the motorcycle and sidecar from diverging, and lead, which is how much the sidecar sits in front of the rear wheel of the bike. Now, I've got to be honest, at this stage my head was spinning a little, and to make matters worse, it was my turn for a go in the sidecar, kindly piloted by Watsonian's managing director Ben Matthews, and as you can imagine, he can ride a bit. We had some drifting, then I was lofted in the air for a bit, then some more drifting, which is of course all excellent preparation for having a go myself. A few laps of the private estate that Watsonian are based upon and a couple of close shaves was certainly enough to get a feel for just how different this is than riding a regular bike.
So what's it like to ride? Well, being in the sidecar itself, I can only describe it as like exhilarating. You're so low to the ground, especially out on the open road. It feels like you're going way faster than you actually are. And having the bike at the side of you, you get so much noise from it. It's kind of like being in a toboggan with a motorcycle attached to the side. Proper good fun. And for me, I thought it was a way more enjoyable experience than riding sort of in the pillion seat behind the rider. As for riding it yourself, it really does mess with your head because it's contrary to everything that you'd normally do on a motorcycle. Firstly, the steering, it steers in the direction that you want to go as opposed to counter steering like you would on a normal bike. So when you turn the bars left, everything goes left. When you turn it right, everything goes right. You have got to remember as well that this is the width of a car. So you're essentially in the driver's position. So a big thing that you have to change in terms of your mindset is where you position yourself on the road. You have to be over to the right and make sure that you're accounting for not just the sidecar, but the wheel on the side as well. That adds another good foot. The other thing that took me a lot of getting used to is the fact that you don't have to put your feet down. Obviously you're not going to fall over, but you feel like when you're on a motorcycle and it comes to a stop, naturally you're just going to topple over. You don't need to do that. But those are just little quirks really that you can get your head around, and what really takes some focus is the steering and accelerating and decelerating. So on a right turn it's pretty easy because as you go into the right, all the weight goes to the left and it basically acts like a tripod, so it supports the bike, so you can actually go pretty quick. In fact, if you know what you're doing, then you can actually drift it, as Ben demoed to me. He can definitely ride this thing and it's good fun being in the sidecar while he's doing that. You still have to focus on those right turns though, because it takes a bit of strength to get the bars pointing in the way that you want them, and then you've got to look through the turn and not get distracted. This thing, honestly, if you at all target fixate, it'll punish you for it because the bars are heavier, so it takes more correction. Also, your instinct at first is to correct by counter steering and you just run out of time. So really it's about staying focused through the corner, not looking at what's immediately around you. And that nearly caught me out a couple of times, even just going slowly around this business park. Left turns are a different ball game altogether because your weight's shifting to the outside, so there's a chance that that wheel can come up. Even with my substantial weight in the sidecar there, Ben could get it to pop up quite easily at modest speeds. So you do have to lean into those left turns to stop that happening and manage your speed. And then even on and off the gas, so as you accelerate, because you've got this drag on the left hand side, it wants to go around to the left as you're applying the throttle. As soon as you close the throttle and get on the brakes, the sidecar wants to come around and it starts going to the right. So you've got to put a bit of pressure on the relevant side of the handlebars to account for that and sort of prevent it happening. It also has a little bit of a wiggle left and right through the bars as you set off. They do have steering dampers fitted here at Watsonian. That minimizes the effect, but it's still a bit unnerving. But look, all of this aside, I can really see how it's one of those things that when you get the knack, it's super satisfying. Even with just a couple of short laps around here, you can start to feel your ability improving. It is really good fun, and I definitely recommend giving it a shot if you ever get the chance.
A massive thanks to everyone at Watsonian for a grand day out and a memorable experience. I think it goes without saying that if you're ever in the market for a sidecar, it should be the first place on your list to check out. They're super helpful and accommodating, and as you saw in the factory tour, there's a lot of knowledge and attention and craftsmanship that goes into each and every build. And where else do you get a drifting lesson when you buy a new bike?